Welcome to Get Moving. I'm Dr. Chris Landon. I serve as your host. Here in Ventura County, we have a number of things that we worry about. One of the biggest things that I worry about is what's going to happen with pandemic flu, with a suitcase bomb in Los Angeles, where we'll have 2 million people trying to escape, running up our Highway 101 coming at us. And I worry about bioterrorism. Are we really prepared for what's going to happen? There's going to be a surge in patients needed to be cared for in our hospitals, and are we really ready to take care of them? Somewhere like Amgen, what would happen if that had to shut down? We met about a year ago with my guest today, with Bob Carey here from Viasys. I invited him back because I'm really excited about something that's happened in terms of our ability to handle this surge capacity. Bob, tell me a little bit about the company you're from, and then we'll talk about the news that we've heard from the state.
Well, I work for a company called Viasys Healthcare. Viasys is kind of a conglomeration of three major respiratory products companies, Bird Bear and Sensormedics, that have come together. And we manufacture ventilators, pulmonary function diagnostic equipment, and a vast array of respiratory products and respiratory care devices.
Well, I use your products. I use the microsys and for pulmonary function. My young men who've undergone lung transplants, and my kids at home with neuromuscular disease. But is there any news with Viasys? I know when we met a year ago, we were not ready. We had, I think, 115 ventilators in our county, and we estimated it'd be probably 70 to 80 times that number if we get the flu here in this county.
Yeah, we're actually very happy. This past fall, we secured an order from the state of California for 2,400 ventilators that the state has ready to go now in warehouses, ready to deploy wherever and whenever necessary if such a thing as a pandemic flu or any kind of a natural or unnatural disaster were to occur. And these ventilators are already in place, owned by the state, and ready for deployment.
Well, when you say a ventilator, what does a ventilator do?
Well, a ventilator breathes for you when you can't breathe for yourself. And it's the main thing. And this is actually our ventilator here. I brought one kind of a sample of it. Ours happens to be a very portable ventilator. It's the LTV series of ventilators. LTV stands for laptop ventilator. Even though the laptop computers have gotten a lot slimmer and trimmer in the last few years, when this first came out in the late 90s, it was about the size of a Toshiba laptop computer. And, but it will actually do all the ventilation that you would normally do in an ICU setting.
Well, gee, the ones I've seen are really about the size of a safe in the hospital. Are you telling me this little ventilator really can provide everything I need?
Absolutely. And it currently does in many different settings. We don't just make these for pandemic flu. We use them in home care, in hospital use in the ICU and sub-ICUs. We use them in transport, in LTACs. Virtually anywhere, what this gives you is the portability and the freedom to ventilate a patient anywhere that patient needs to be or would like to be.
Well, previously we've had the Nutley boys on our show. They have muscular dystrophy, they're at home. They have the cough assist, they're on artificial ventilation by mask at night. And they're really pretty trapped in their world. Has this kind of thing been pushed down into pediatrics? Is it just for adults?
Actually, our biggest marketplace is pediatrics. One of the real breakthroughs that this ventilator provided the healthcare delivery system was the ability to take a baby who was bound to the hospital because of the mechanical ventilator and the need to have a ventilator breathing for them. But this ventilator allowed them to transition to the home and use the ventilator at home when they didn't otherwise need anything else from the hospital. And it allowed a lot of these babies, and continues to allow a lot of these babies, the opportunity to go home months and months sooner than they would otherwise, because it delivers the same type of breath delivery and quality ventilation that a hospital ICU ventilator provides.
Well, high tech is really, it can only be matched by high touch. How do you guys support these ventilators at home? Is that through different equipment companies, or?
Yeah, there's tons and tons of home care equipment companies that serve home care patients with all sorts of needs across the spectrum. There's a very small number of those that actually handle patients on ventilators at home, that have staffed respiratory therapists that are on call 24 hours a day and so on. And those folks will handle the delivery of the medicine and the equipment in the home, as well as the maintenance and ongoing care of the patient on the ventilator.
Well, the companies that came together, it's certainly the Bird ventilator. When I was an intern at Stanford, there off in the corner was this little cheeping ventilator that's what I thought it was named after, was some bird cheeping in a corner. Well, tell me, I know you've worked with Dr. Bird, who's been around for quite a while. He's quite a character. Do you have any Dr. Bird stories to share?
Yeah, I actually, I've worked with Dr. Bird in the past, and he is a very interesting gentleman. He actually got into the building of mechanical ventilators. He's a pilot first and an aviator whose love is aviation, and he holds several patents in that field as well. But the interesting story of how he transitioned into medicine was that as a naval aviator during World War II, the Allied forces had captured a German bomber, and he was asked to bring that from Europe back to the United States, and they had a different oxygen delivery system as they would take that the plane to different altitudes. And so he was fiddling around with that and probably took it above altitudes that he was told he was allowed to. And when he delivered the plane, the commander that he delivered the plane to, he asked him if he could keep that device, and that got him started in breathing devices. And he started a company, the Bird Corporation, that he later sold to 3M. And he's continuing to pursue other breathing apparatus device companies from his home in upstate Idaho.
I think one of the devices we were talking about earlier was the percussion air, which he started out as being a high-frequency ventilator and really tried to make it into something that would pound the mucus out of people. I've used that. It really does pound you from the inside out. Are there any other interesting kinds of ventilators that he's come up with?
I haven't seen beyond the percussion air line, which seems to have found its niche in burn units and in assisting burn patients in removing secretions and so on. He's probably got something up his sleeve. He's quite the inventor, so I don't know what else he's coming up with, but even into his late 80s, he's still tinkering and inventing.
Well, tell me, a ventilator seems like it would sure limit you and what you could do. What's the wildest thing that someone's done with a ventilator?
Well, we've had one of the first ads that the company put out when the ventilator was first started up, first came out to market, was showing a young girl on the ventilator riding on a horse, riding horseback, and that certainly got a lot of attention. But probably the most unique experience that I've seen somebody have with this ventilator is that a gentleman from Sweden, actually, who was ventilator bound and used the ventilator 24/7, actually did a skydiving expedition and jumped out of an airplane in a tandem jump while breathing on the ventilator. And that's probably the most unique experience I've ever seen somebody in terms of continuing to pursue the things they want to do in life and not letting the fact that they need to be on a ventilator limit them.
Well, how about with my kids? You know, they're caught indoors. They really appear to learn how to enjoy the sun and feel the water and the sand between their toes. And sure feels like a parent would be pretty cautious in terms of letting them have that kind of experience.
Well, it's really as far as the imagination would want to let you go. We've got pictures of kids that are little guys out at the beach together. The ventilator weighs 13 pounds. It runs off of batteries that are intact here, so you can really take a young child or an adult anywhere you want. I know up in Michigan they have a very famous vent camp, and the kids are up and down on tree swings and doing all kinds of stuff, and they get to go to a real live, go away from home camp, even though they're on ventilators. So the portability of this, and many kids go to school. They do daily school routine on the ventilator. So the portability of this, delivering the kind of ventilation you'd get in the hospital, but with the ability to do that anywhere, has really opened up the quality of life for these patients.
Well, when you talk about a contract for 2,400 ventilators, I think that's probably a big piece of change. How big is the contract for something like that?
I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $30 million.